If you'd want to be anyone in showbiz right now, surely that name must be Tom Holland. He is the king of the box office, and Uncharted is a very fun film. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. Now before we get into it, I do want to at least briefly mention, while I do not have a big platform here, I still value every single one of you subscribers and viewers, and if you can, I would like to ask you to in some way support the efforts in Ukraine to fight off the Russian invasion. Maybe you can make a donation, or maybe you can at least share some news, some actual correct news about the incident. There's a lot of fake news going about it as well. If you can in any way support it, that would be great. I would appreciate that a lot. These are very difficult times and I keep finding myself lost in thoughts about the whole incident. How would I react? It's really difficult. I can't imagine what it must be like for the people there. And it just makes you feel lucky when you consider it's most of what happens to you in your life is just about where you were born. I was lucky enough to be born in Central Europe. Okay, let's talk about the film. So I'm talking about Uncharted. If you're not familiar with it, this is actually a gaming franchise that primarily is tied to Sony, so the Sony PlayStation. And there are actually 4 main games in the series. I think there's an extra one as well. I haven't played that one, I must say. If you want to know my background with the games, I didn't actually play them until about 2 or 3 years ago. There are 4 altogether. As I mentioned, you've got the basic trilogy that came out quite a while ago, and then I think it was in 2016 or 2017, you had the 4th part, which is a lot more ambitious, I will say. It is also, in my opinion, not only the best game in the series, but it's also the one I just like the most. If you want to attach a very simple name to it, you could just call it, it's basically a male Tomb Raider game. That's what it is. I loved Tomb Raider back in the day. It's one of my favourite games from childhood, the second part in particular. To me it was just fascinating, all the exploration and adventure going on there. I really like that, and combined with the gunfights and everything, I really like that. Uncharted is very much a game in that vein, but it is a lot more action heavy, I do feel, compared to the puzzle solving, etc. It is there, but there's a lot more focus on the combat. And they're rather short games, so they never overstay their welcome, because if those games were a bit longer, they would feel a bit too repetitive, I feel. So this means we've got a Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones style story here. They did not try and adapt a single story from one of the games, so it's not like this is Uncharted 2 or something like that. They just sort of hand-picked elements that they liked out of it, combined it into film. They changed it quite a bit, we'll talk about that a bit later. So they have made their own thing, absolutely. It stands apart from the game series, which makes sense because games don't always translate very well. A very good move that they made when making this film. It was directed by Ruben Fleischer. If you're not familiar with him, he actually directed and made the first Venom film, also for Sony. The interesting thing there being the comparison between that and Uncharted now, both are films which the critics weren't overly wild about, but however, the audience really liked them, and the same applies to me, so for some reason there's a real disconnect there. Now, this isn't really a very highbrow film. It is very much an action film, a popcorn film. Uncharted was also better than I expected it to be. I wasn't too sure about watching it at first, but then I saw opinions coming in on the internet of people liking the film. I thought, okay, it might be better than I expected it to be, because various elements in the trailer didn't really, draw me in, I will say. The plot of the film is explained rather easily. We've got 2 main people. One of them is Sully, who's played by Mark Wahlberg. The other one is Nathan Drake, or Nate is his nickname. He is played by Tom Holland. They, due to various circumstances, they get to meet each other. They join forces to try and find an ancient pirate treasure, gold treasure, which is from the 1600s, I believe. And yes, so it's, like I say, an Indiana Jones style thing. So we've got an adventure where they're traveling the world and trying to get to this treasure, and obviously there are people that are trying to get there as well and trying to hinder them, and that's all you really need to know about the story. It is that simple, really. But I feel that they could have done it really badly, and I did see that there were certain criticisms about the script. I felt it was fine. Again, you're not expecting this hugely complex, difficult story. I felt it was fine. The progression, to me, none of the scenes really felt like filler, so I really liked that. So everywhere we're going had and felt like it had a purpose. And it somehow served the plot or the character development. So I did like that. So just the whole journey, I felt the 2 hours, they went by very quickly. I liked the story. I felt it was very compact. We didn't spend time with unnecessary things or what you could have in such films. There wasn't a lot of, fan service in here. Obviously there were bits, but what I'm saying is we didn't spend an awful big focus on that. So I felt it was done correctly. The main difference you will notice if you are a fan of the games is the games, in each installment of the game, you kill probably hundreds of thugs in gunfights, hundreds, easily hundreds of them. And it's very, very different here. Nate actually, I'd have to go through the whole film again, but I'm not sure if he even kills one person. There are fights, fist fights, etc., but he does not have a gun until actually rather late in the film, and even then he only uses it very sparingly. So that is a very stark contrast, but I feel that that's a very good decision because it would just not work in a film. This is not Rambo, this isn't a guy you're rooting for to kill hundreds of people. It makes sense in the game, that's what's part of it, and you've got the interesting combat mechanics there. In the film, I felt this was a very fitting approach, and also the way that Tom Holland portrays Nate and how the character's written, it just wouldn't gel well with him just being, I'll call a maniac shooting hundreds of people. They also changed the character of Sully a bit. Sully is, in the games, he's a lot older than Nate, and he is sort of his mentor, and he guides him, and they work together, etc. Here, that's not quite so clear, and the age difference isn't that big. You do have the elements here that we like about the relationship between the two, but what they did here in this film is what they also have a lot of in the game, but they focused on the issue of trust, because we don't just have them, we have a third character coming in. We also have Chloe Fraser, who's played by Sophia Ali, coming in. She's also a character from the games, and in this triangle, there's always an issue of who can trust whom. There's a bit of distrust going about. Everyone's expecting to be backstabbed at some point in this process, in this adventure. And it is a constant thing. And while it could easily seem like it is too much, it's actually, it fits perfectly because it goes in every direction and it's everyone, so it's not too one-sided or so. And it is actually, there are a few twists here. You do kind of expect them because, like I say, from the start, trust is an issue in this story, but I feel that they handled that quite well, and I like the chemistry between the actors and the characters. It was fine. Between Sully and Nate, it wasn't always quite 100%, so maybe if they get to make another film, they can go a bit deeper there and maybe, just correct that a bit and get it to where it is in the games. I would enjoy that quite a lot. You have a villain in this film. He's played by Antonio Banderas, and while I haven't seen too much with him in it, I really liked him in this role. I thought he had that certain edge to him, that little menacing edge. I really enjoyed that quite a lot. So I thought he would be just very generic, a very generic villain, and while the script for him is rather generic, I still liked his portrayal. I think that he did elevate that quite a bit, so I enjoyed that a lot. Action-wise, it's fine. I like the stunts, etc. Sometimes the CGI was a bit dodgy, and green screen stuff I felt was very, very obvious and didn't mesh quite well. You've got certain scenes where I think there was one where some people came out of a plane and then you saw what they were looking at, and that looked just completely unreal to me. That seemed very, very off. But I will say that, without spoiling it, in the third act, we've got one big action set piece, and I not only liked it a lot, I thought it was very, very creative. It takes what we have seen in adventure films before, particularly those connected to ships and pirates and stuff, but it takes it and does something very new with it, and I really, really like that. So that was a very brilliant idea that they had there. Really enjoyed it. That alone, that action set piece was a lot of fun. I'll definitely be watching the film again just for that. But overall, I really liked it. I thought it was very enjoyable. One little story I do have to say before we close off here is yesterday when I went to the cinema for the first time, I felt like an old man. There were like only 12 other people there. They were all minors. There was a group of girls there. They were obviously there for Tom Holland, and he does get his shirt off, so I suppose they got their money's worth. And then there was a group of 6 teenagers, and they spent the first few minutes of the film just talking, laughing, you know, not paying attention. And, you know, I don't want to be the strict guy, but you're in the cinema. Everyone's there to watch the film. So for the first time in my life, you know, I had to say, guys, please, could you just shut up, you know, I want to watch the film. I felt a bit weird about it, but in the end, of course, it's justified because, look, we're at the cinema. But still, you know, later on, I was like, you know, I'm an old man now, fine. I'll have to live with that. So overall, I felt it was a successful film. I do believe it's also had a very, very good start at the box office, so it's looking good for them making another one. I would like that quite a lot, I will say. I'll also mention the music, because in the first trailer, they had this sort of, I don't know, I'll call it even almost sort of dad rock vibe to it. You felt it was a very just generic rock music. You thought that was the vibe they were going for. It's one of the reasons I was not sure about it. But it turns out that they don't just, you know, just use songs from popular culture. They actually have a full score, and I really liked it. It was very good. It wasn't the best score in the world, but I felt that it worked and went really well with what we were seeing on screen. So that was definitely something that very surprised me. So I feel it's going to be successful enough to get another sequel. I would enjoy that quite a lot. Ruben Fleischer, apparently very good at starting franchises at Sony. Fair play to him. I like his work very much. So go and watch it if you can. Especially if you're a fan of the games, I think that you will enjoy this just as much. That will be all from me today. I'll thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. That's the best way to support this channel, and I'll see you in the next video on Flying Wiener. Take care.